Walking down Butler Street in Revere is like being in any other middle-class neighborhood. Until you reach the wall. Suddenly you're transfixed in time. It's almost as if you've stepped back into pre-colonial New England history. On a spring day, you can hear songbirds chirping as the sun casts shadows on the thin slate stones that make up the old Rumney Marsh burial ground. This colonial-era site is a perpetual record of yesterday and a sanctuary of peace and serenity today. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Show me your cemeteries, and I will tell you what kind of people you are." The old Rumney Marsh burial ground certainly lives up to Mr. Franklin's observation.
545 of our early settlers are buried at the Rumney Marsh burial ground. The rectangular site is enclosed by a 3-foot by 2-foot wide wall built as a WPA project in the 1930s. It consists of rough-faced granite blocks topped by a slightly projecting coping course and a double row of jagged stones. This wall replaced an old wooden fence that appeared in some archival views. You'll notice that the stones are roughly arranged in rows, with the inscriptions facing west and the bodies facing east toward the rising sun. The earliest stones are located on the highest ground at the rear center of the burial ground. Many of them are accompanied by small footstones, and in some cases, only the footstone remains. When you walk through the site yourself, you can't help but wonder how this all came to be. The earliest date on record of white settlers on the soil of Revere was 1625. Settlers to this area received allotments of this land from the Massachusetts Bay Colony by the right of land grants from the King of England. After the allotments had been made and assigned to various grantees, 3 settlements were started. One at Winnisumet, now known as Chelsea, another at Pullen Point, now known as Winthrop, and the third at Rumney Marsh. In 1739, Rumney Marsh became part of a new community called Chelsea and was incorporated as North Chelsea in 1846, with a name change to Revere in 1871. As time passed, these land grants were cut up into smaller sections, much like a large piece of land is subdivided for real estate development today. Over time, there were deaths as well as births, but some of the oldest settlers were buried in different locations from where they lived. Some at Copp's Hill Burial Ground in Boston, others in Wakefield, and others in cemeteries in nearby towns. The Rumney Marsh Burial Ground sits on what was the northern edge of the Cole Farm, a large expanse of land granted to Samuel Cole by King Charles of England. Part of the Cole Farm was purchased by William Harsey in 1654, and his 2 sons, William and Joseph, were among the first to be buried here. Then, in 1693, the wife of Captain John Smith was buried behind the old Masonic Temple, which was originally a church. This land was part of the estate of William Harsey's son, Lieutenant Joseph Harsey, and this first non-family grave is considered to be the start of the old Rumney Marsh burial ground. In 1740, the Harsey family sold the property to the Cheever family. Thomas's son Joshua deeded the site to the town in 1748.
This burial ground is like a mini chronicle of America's past, containing the remains of patriots, farmers, and ship captains, their wives and children, and others whose names and memories have been long lost to obscurity. In the center of the Rumney Marsh burial ground is the grave of Dean Winthrop, son of the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, John Winthrop. His family also lies here beside him. Dean Winthrop's funeral was largely attended by local dignitaries, including the famous Judge Sewell of colonial Boston.
Here lieth buried ye body of Dean Winthrop of Pullen Point, aged 81 years, who departed this life March the 16th, 1703.
There is an undeniable charm among the crooked rows of uneven headstones, most of them much thinner than those used today. A real sense of tranquility and peace pervades here, despite the old engravings of the Angel of Death or the Death's Head on many of the stones.
This burial ground contains a fascinating collection of gravestones dating from the late 17th to the mid-19th century. The majority of the headstones here are made of dark slate, along with a few examples of marble, limestone, and granite. Some of the stones are broken, sinking, or toppled, while others have actually disappeared over time. But some of the slates maintain their crisp detail, while the softer stones have eroded and lost their detail. Many of these headstones possess the distinctive artistic qualities of gravestone designed and carved by true craftsmen. Rumney Marsh is especially rich in the winged skull motif, which dominated New England gravestone art throughout much of the 17th century. In the 18th century, the winged skulls were replaced by winged cherubs, while later headstones displayed the stylized floral borders that replaced the fruit and leaf motifs that were characteristic of the 17th and early 18th centuries. At least two early slates at Rumney Marsh have been attributed to the noted stone carver Joseph Lamson, who belonged to a dynasty of skilled artisans working in the Malden and Charlestown area. In 1910, the remains of many of the early settlers were removed from the site of the Church of Christ at Beach Street at the intersection of Eustis and Carey Avenue and reburied here at the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground. The last interment took place in 1929 with the burial of Lewis L. Bullard in the Civil War section of the burial ground.
Before there were public cemeteries, there were family plots, where it was the common practice to bury family members on the same land from where they resided. But back then, not everyone was a landowner. And as the population grew, the families of tenant farmers and hired hands needed their own appropriate burial sites. And that's how public cemeteries came into being back in colonial times, for the most part. In the case of the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground, there was another, even more compelling reason.
In 1690, an epidemic of smallpox broke out, and officials in Boston decreed that
all persons dying in Rumney Marsh and parts adjacent of the smallpox, their bodies shall be buried in some convenient place on that side of the water, and none of them shall be brought over to Boston under penalty of £5 in money to the use of the poor in Boston.
And with that, the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground was established and believed to be the first official burial ground north of the Mystic River. When you visit the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground, you'll find it to be rather small and unassuming, tucked in the middle of a residential neighborhood. But it has great historical significance, and that's why it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places. 7 veterans of the colonial wars are buried here, as are 20 veterans of America's War of Independence, 4 veterans of the War of 1812, our second War of Independence from England, and 13 veterans of the Civil War, plus the son of a Massachusetts governor and the Reverend Philip Payson, hero of the Battle of Lexington and a close friend of John Adams. Unmarked, but not forgotten, on a stone marking the Revolutionary War dead is Job Warrow. But why no grave? Because next to his name is the word colored. 16 slaves and former slaves are also buried along the Butler Street wall at the front of the burial ground. Those who did get headstones found that just as there was something poetic about their lives, there was often something poetic in their deaths as well. Witness the engraving on the stone of Mrs. Bridget Pinkham, who died February 8, 1846.
Sleep on, dear mother, take your rest, in the bright mansion of the blessed. And in the morning when we rise, we hope to meet you in the skies.
There is much more to know about the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground. Within this tranquil enclosure, you'll find the names of historical figures as well as everyday people who helped shape the history of Revere. History has much to say about men such as Payson, Cheever, and Sprague.
Born on January 18, 1736, young Phillips was the son of Phillips and Ann Payson. He was raised in Walpole and attended Harvard College. He was ordained in Chelsea on October 26, 1757. His father and 3 of his brothers were also clergymen in Massachusetts. Payson succeeded the Reverend Thomas Cheever as Congregationalist minister to the citizens of Chelsea and remained on his pulpit for the next 43 years. Although a clergyman, during the Battle of Lexington on April 19, 1775, Payson marched with 25 others to Arlington. Payson and his small group attacked the Redcoats and captured most of the supplies, thus crippling the advance of the king's troops. For the duration of the war, Payson took no further military action, but the, quote, fighting parson, end quote, continued to support American independence from his pulpit. In the years following the war, the Constitution was drafted, and the 13 new states now met in separate conventions. Debates were often heated, with feelings from both sides quite strong. One issue that split the convention was the question of whether a religious test be required in order to run for public office. Reverend Payson argued eloquently against such a test. It has been stated that the American Constitution was a work of genius. We citizens of Revere can be proud that we had as fine a man as Reverend Payson to speak for us 200 years ago. Another illustrious war hero was Captain Samuel Sprague, born in Malden on September 27, 1712, and died in Chelsea on April 15, 1783. On April 19, 1775, Sprague, aged 62, was appointed captain of the Chelsea Militia. The following May, during the Battle of Chelsea Creek, the Chelsea Militia distinguished itself in combat. With Colonel John Stark's New Hampshire Regiment and Colonel Putnam's troops from Connecticut, the colonial forces defeated the Redcoats and captured the British schooner Diana. Buried in the Rumney Marsh Cemetery, his stone reads,
Prepare all friends to follow me, if you the face of God and love do hope to see.
Thomas Cheever was a clergyman who graduated from Harvard College in 1677. He began preaching in Malden on February 14, 1680, and was ordained there on July 27, 1681. He was dismissed in 1686 from this church when he moved to Rumney Marsh. From 1686 until 1715, he was in comparative retirement there. He lived on his 120-acre farm, which was located west of Broadway and north of Fennell Street. In 1715, he was chosen as pastor of the newly gathered church at Rumney Marsh. This church was later converted to a Masonic temple. It still stands today as a modern health care facility on Beach Street, not far from the burial ground. Thomas also taught school in Rumney Marsh as early as 1709, teaching reading, writing, and ciphering at his home to an average of 20 pupils. Cheever died in 1749 at the age of 91. At the time, he was the oldest surviving graduate of Harvard College. It was Reverend Cheever's son, Joshua, who purchased the plot of land where our cemetery is today. Joshua bequeathed the burial ground to the town in 1748.
While you may not find all of their names in the history books, getting to know more about them will give you a sense of what everyday life was like back in 17th and 18th century New England. A war memorial honoring soldiers of the Colonial Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, and the Civil War was placed at the entrance to the burial ground in 1930 by the Revere Tercentennial Committee. The burial ground was restored in 1975 by the Revere Historical and Cultural Commission under the administration of Mayor George V. Colella. The grounds were cleaned up, many stones were restored, and a brick walkway was installed. But like any other outdoor historical site, the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground is subject to the ravages of time. And once they're gone, we can't bring them back. So what has to be done now to preserve our historical heritage? The main gate and brick walkway need repair. Many of the trees need to be pruned and in some cases removed, since some of them have actually moved or broken headstones. The headstones themselves need preservation, and cracks in the surrounding walls need repair. The signage and historical plaques need to be either replaced or added to help relay the story of our history to visitors and to the school children of our city. Remember the words of Ben Franklin. It is now our responsibility.
This site is far too important for us to let it slip into decline. We have a responsibility whenever we can to preserve history for our children and grandchildren. And so, as friends of the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground, we are asking you to see the value of maintaining this historic site by showing your support through whatever donation you can make. 100% of your tax-deductible gift will go into a general fund for the restoration, maintenance, and upkeep of the Rumney Marsh Burial Ground, so that this important legacy of our American past can be preserved for the benefit of our proud city and for future generations to come.